A young girl named Kagome finds herself traveling between the modern era and feudal Japan and the world of Inuyasha, where she encounters a world of yokai and other Japanese mythological creatures. Some are friendly and some are absolutely heroic. That being said, a lot of these creatures aren't always pretty, they can sometimes become utterly horrific. Today, we're looking at some of the Inuyasha universe's scariest monsters and villains and ranking them in the top 10. Also, as nothing is more scary than a good twist, please be aware of the abundance of spoilers. Either you die a hero, they say, or you live to become a villain. Saint Hakushin was a priest of Buddhism who did both somehow. He realized he was not too happy about his followers praying for his death after offering himself as a human sacrifice and being buried alive. He survived as a living corpse through a deal with Naraku so that he could erect a barrier around Mount Hakure. Hakushin was ultimately more tragic than outright evil. He realized during a meeting with another less-than-dead character, the priestess Kikyo, that he didn't hate his followers as much as he didn't really want to die when he did, allowing him to move on eventually. It stands to reason that even pests like rats can have them if dogs and wolves can have yokai. He commands his rat minions to attack human villages and eat the flesh of their victims, saving the bones for him. Zashinizumi is hungry for human bones. It may be an unnerving idea to send armies of rats to kill hordes of victims, but Zashinizumi is less of a threat than most of the monsters on this list, admittedly, as Hakudamshai and Kahaku did brief work on him. Usually, in anime, the art of giving huge eyes to characters is meant to make them look cute. The exception to this rule is Urisu. In the hope of resurrecting her as her minion and helping her to gather the sacred jewel, this Oni witch stole Kikyo's remains. Unfortunately, she needed a soul, and so she kidnapped Kagome, conspiring with magical herbs to steal her soul. Ultimately, though, let's just say Urisu ended up being ruined by her own creation. Kikyo was not the first of her undead children, some of whom had survived by feeding on human souls, or some of whom were willing to enslave the world with living dead armies. So in a way, after her death, she was still a menace. A toad-like yokai, the Tsukumo no Gama, may not be a big hulking monster, but it is the epitome of a creepy one. He kidnaps maidens and imprisons them in egg-like prisons, having possessed a young lord, transforming him into a toad-like creature, and using bandages to hide his true identity so that he can feed on their souls. Apparently unbeatable, feeding on souls can heal him of any harm immediately. He appears to regain his senses in one of his creepiest scenes and begs Inuyasha to kill his host body. The yokai takes back control when the other characters stop him, implying the whole thing was a trick to kill the true lord. In the end, with the help of some hairspray, Kagome manages to vanquish him, meaning he would probably have succeeded if it were not for some convenient time traveling. Mistress Centipede was the yokai who started it all, the first feudal-era yokai Kagome encountered. She managed to obtain the sacred jewel, one of the most powerful yokai of the era. Even death had no power over her because of this, as long as she remained near the jewel, she was able to regenerate. She was prepared to get dirty to get close to her goal, even biting into the stomach of Kagome to steal the jewel. Eventually, by removing the jewel from her body, she is defeated, ultimately keeping her dead for good. There are few fates scarier than death, but one of them is eternal damnation. Initially, the Soul Piper appears as a friendly yokai who helps dead kids move on to the afterlife. It's only harmless, though, when his eyes are closed. However, when its eyes are opened, a soul will be forced to relive its death and then drag it to hell. To be fair, when a spirit it follows has turned to the dark side, the Soul Piper only seems willing to open its eyes. But it seems that once it opens its eyes, it doesn't care who is dragging it off to hell. When he tried to help the spirit of a little girl, Kagome almost learned this the hard way and was almost sent to hell, too. This monster appears in the modern era, unlike most of the spirits in the series, meaning that it will always exist as a threat. The bone demon often takes the form of a beautiful young woman who often claims to be in danger of being a princess but is actually a sinister yokai with the power to rip bones out of the bodies of her victim. Her main goal is for her weak father, an aged bone demon, to collect bones. She also has the habit of leaving a honeycombed trail for people to find her as a trap. She can also animate her victim's bones as an assault when she has you in her clutches. Ultimately, one weakness is vanquished by her. Sunlight. In a painting which became a popular site of worship for women who lost their husbands to war, this yokai was sealed away. Through infesting them with parasitic eggs, the salamander soon took control over the women. Her main objective was to make her skin regenerate. She used the women to lure men to her shrine to do this so that she could steal their skin and eventually flay them alive. She even succeeded in putting Sango under her control during her time. What makes her even creepier is that even after she is initially defeated, her female victims still appear to be under her influence. Also known as the flesh-eating mask, before she had the opportunity to exercise it, this cursed object took on the face of a woman. The cursed object used its host body to bite the heads off of people after taking over her body. Its main objective is to create for itself a new body, eventually transforming it into a living blob of human corpses. Some of the gorier components of the initial manga story were toned down by the anime adaptation of the story. Instead of a human woman, the mask initially possesses a wooden figure, and its body looks more like black liquid than human remains. But still, a mask that kills and eats people is still quite frightening. You know he's bad business with a character who is literally named after Hell himself. He was originally a human bandit who merged with a yokai horde to become the villain he is today, the story's main antagonist. He resembles a feudal lord for most of the series whose face he stole, but he can also assume more horrifying spider-like shapes. And let's be honest, that baboon pelt he sometimes wears is plenty creepy already. It's not even clear what his actual motivation is behind a lot of conflict within the story. He seems evil for the sake of it. Actually, he's so bad he has to be literally desired to be defeated once and for all out of existence.